Well, hello, Oddballs. It's your host, Bobby.
And your co-host, Lexi.
And this is
Oddities on Elm Street.
Feels good to be back.
Hello.
A lot of people probably don't know this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen something. But if not, you're probably totally unaware that I was out of the country for a couple of weeks. So all of our episodes were pre-recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been over a month since we've seen each other. I came to that realization last night.
And we've finally been reunited.
I know. So, yeah, it feels nice to be back in our studio recording new episodes.
Mm-hmm. Get back into the norm.
I know. It's a nice little routine we have.
Yeah.
So, we do have a new patron to be shouted
Hello.
out. So a big thank you to Maher for joining our Patreon. They actually spelled it out for me specifically so that I wouldn't mispronounce it. So I hope I'm doing good. We appreciate your support, and if you would like to support the show and gain access to some nice little perks, you can head over to our Patreon. There you'll find early access to all of our episodes. They're ad-free. You'll get exclusive mini episodes, which we have talked about recording episodes specifically for
top tier
Patreon subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but if you want to hear a very out of the ordinary case involving mushrooms and murder, then come to our Patreon.
Yes.
Next week.
Yes.
Mushrooms.
Murder. And another way you can support our show is by giving us a 5-star rating.
Yes,
and
please.
Sharing our show with your friends and family or on your social media. That really helps us grow. And if you do any of those things, then thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Today we have a very spooky topic, and we're going to talk about one of the most haunted hotels in the U.S. And as you listen, you'll probably start to figure out exactly why it's considered haunted.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those places that seems like it's a magnet for negative energy and tragedy.
And yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anything else you can think of before we jump in?
No, I think we should just hop in.
All right.
Let's go.
Okay. The Cecil Hotel is located on South Main Street in Los Angeles, California. And this road is now, in modern times, an area called Skid Row. And Skid Row is infamous for being a pretty rough area.
Very, very rough.
Lots of people with substance abuse, people facing homelessness. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people find themselves on Skid Row. And I was actually doing a little bit of research into like why Skid Row has become Skid Row. And it's actually created, like designed this way intentionally. I didn't know this, but it's kind of just become the centralized area for people in this crowd because of all of the welfare services that they have contained specifically to this area. So I found this site called Invisible People,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a quote on there saying, "The city decided that if they contained all of their homeless services in one area, they could also contain all of their city's homeless population in that one area. Perhaps they intended to better serve the homeless community by having all their services accessible in a single area. This would mean more homeless people would be able to access these services. However, a darkness, a sadness, grows here amid all the pain and suffering." So, the Cecil Hotel, being in the center of all of this, has earned a reputation for being a pretty seedy or shady place.
Mm-hmm.
It was a place of a lot of transients or people just passing through. And a lot of people might find themselves here on accident as well. Like if you weren't familiar with the area.
Because it's so close to the airport.
Yeah.
And so people are just like, okay, yeah. But then all of a sudden, like, Oh, this is where we're staying?
Yeah, and since they've rebranded it, they've done a really good job on their website of marketing themselves. So, you know, you might find yourself on the website and think, this is a really affordable place that seems like it's a nice option.
Close by. Yep.
Yep. And as this is sometimes the case, people tend to stay here without any awareness of the horrific and dark history that it's known to hold. I do feel like people find out quickly once they get here, because the place just seems to like emanate this dark negative energy. And as you'll see toward the end of this episode, where we'll share a spooky story from someone who has stayed here, the building itself just over the years has seemed to absorb the energy from all of the tragedies that have taken place.
There's just so much surrounding outside and inside of just horrific things. It's like you can't get away from that.
Yeah. And I feel like they've really tried to separate themselves from that, but
there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, you're right. Some sources say that the Cecil Hotel opened in 1924, and some say it opened in 1927. So I will say we don't know an exact year.
Whatever.
But either way, at this time in history, it would have been considered a pretty luxurious place. Its close proximity to the train station made it a popular place, but unfortunately, at this point in time, nobody could have known that the Great Depression was right around the corner. And that definitely had an impact on the hotel. But then in the 1950s, when freeways are being built, people started to move out into the suburbs, because now with freeways, they can drive into town instead of having to live right there.
Right.
And then by the 1970s, the hotel began to look a little more run down, and business wasn't doing great for them. So it's around this time that the hotel starts to get a reputation that it still holds today. Because business wasn't doing great, they were happily accepting any business when they could find it, which often meant they were renting to people who were down on their luck, who needed an affordable place to stay while they got back on their feet, or renting to even worse people, as we'll soon discover. In an attempt to revive itself, the hotel was given a bit of a facelift and renamed the Stay on Main. The Stay on Main would only encompass the first 14 floors, which would include 700 guest rooms. Then in 2017, renovations on the hotel would start, but were halted by the COVID-19 pandemic, which resulted in the hotel's temporary closure. On December 13th, 2021, the hotel reopened as an affordable housing complex operated by the Skid Row Housing Trust. But all of this couldn't erase the hotel's dark past. A past so dark and scary that a season of American Horror Story was even based off from it.
Right. That's like, you get your own season.
Medal of Honor. Not really the best Medal of Honor, but
Medal of Honor nonetheless.
Have you seen that season?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was decent. It was pretty good. Not my favorite, but
still good.
Yeah. So an unknown amount of deaths have taken place at the Cecil. As you can imagine, I'm sure a lot of these deaths could be drug-related, accidental overdoses, or even people dying of natural causes.
Right.
And those types of deaths aren't really likely to make headlines, so they're not documented.
Right.
But
especially just being on Skid Row.
Yeah.
And people, they get a little bit of money and they'll
get a hotel room for the night.
Right. Right. And I mean, it would not be hard at all for them to overdose and not really have anyone blink an eye at it.
Yeah, that sadly could be the case. We do know that at least 16 of the deaths that have taken place in the Cecil Hotel have been by suicide. In the middle of an autumn night in 1944, 19-year-old Dorothy Jean Purcell was awoken by an intense pain in her stomach. She crept out of bed, trying her best not to wake her 38-year-old boyfriend. Let me stop you right there.
So, let's just say that again. 38-year-old boyfriend of a
19-year-old girl.
Fun.
Yes.
Great. Okay.
So her 38-year-old boyfriend lay next to her in bed, and Dorothy excuses herself to the bathroom. Dorothy was in active labor. She was experiencing a cryptic pregnancy, meaning that she didn't know she was pregnant, and she birthed her baby right then and there in the bathroom of her hotel room.
Without waking up.
Without waking her boyfriend,
Yeah.
yes. And what she did next is shocking. According to Dorothy, she believed the newborn was dead. I don't know if she thought it was a stillborn, if the baby just hadn't taken its first breath yet, or if Dorothy is just straight out lying. But from here, she threw the baby boy out of the window, where he fell to his death after landing on the roof of the building next door. Don't know why that would ever cross your mind as an option.
Like, to just all of a sudden pop a baby out, and then for your next steps to just
open the window and toss him out.
That's like the least motherly thing you could do. And I have a hard time believing that, like, he wasn't crying.
Yeah.
Which is like a very obvious sign that he's alive, because they found air in his lungs.
Right. Well, I will say Dorothy was charged with this, but she was found guilty, or she was found not guilty by reason of insanity.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be kind of an explanation of why she did what she did. I don't know, but it's still it's just kind of hard to believe that that would be your first instinct after just pushing a baby
and
out.
She didn't even tell the boyfriend.
That's insane to me.
Like,
you could just go have a baby in the bathroom in the middle of the night while you lay sleeping here.
Right. Like, he goes to bed, normal, whatever, wakes up the next day and doesn't even know that she had popped his baby out and then threw him out the window.
That's just insane.
And she's just trying to be like, everything's fine.
Yeah.
No matter how you look at it, like, if she was insane or not, there's no getting around just the horrific tragedy of the event.
Yeah.
A newborn being chucked out a window so carelessly.
I can't even think about it.
It's horrific.
It's just awful.
And I couldn't really find much about her after the trial. Like,
yeah.
I tried looking at, like, how long was she in a psychiatric hospital? Or, like, I couldn't find anything.
I know. It is hard, too, because it's the 1940s. And it's like, as we saw when we went and did our asylum tour, they would put women in the mental asylum just for having an opinion.
Yes.
Like, they really were just looking for any reason. So to see that she wasn't arrested but was instead found insane, it makes me really question her intention and, like, the validity of that opinion. I mean, obviously no mentally sane person is going to think to do something like this.
Right.
But
there's a difference between being, like,
incapacitated by mental illness
to the point of insanity, of not knowing right from wrong.
Exactly. So it just, because of the time, it's hard, and that's probably also why not much is documented about it. But I definitely wonder the same.
Yeah, like, I wonder if she went on to have a lobotomy, or
who knows?
You know, it's just my mind.
Or to have children in the future. That's what I wonder. Like, yeah.
Or if she was, what's that word?
Like, I keep thinking castrated.
Euthanized. I don't know.
Too completely. Was she euthanized like a dog? Or was she castrated like a man? So bad. No, I forget, but I know what you're saying.
Infertile.
There you go. Makes sense.
Oh, God. Yep.
Oh, God. Yeah, maybe that... Maybe she's no longer given the choice to have children. You know? They took that away from her. They're like, no more.
I don't know.
I don't know. So there were also rumors that Elizabeth Short stayed at the hotel shortly before her death. And, I mean, these rumors should be taken very lightly. There is no documented proof. And it could very well just be a case of people creating their own folklore type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
but it's interesting, and we want to mention it.
Yeah, of course. And if you're not familiar with that case, you might recognize it by the name Black Dahlia.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth Short was an aspiring actress whose body was found actually not too far from the hotel.
Right.
She was found nude, severed in half. I remember, this is probably fucked up, but this was like something I was really interested in when I was younger, probably because it's still unsolved to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that always really stuck with me that I find so extremely disturbing is that she had
no blood.
She had no blood, and she had grass stuffed inside of her.
She had what? I had
inside of her lady parts. Yes.
What?
Yes. So the blood had been drained from her body. She apparently had been bathed after her death, and her face had been sliced from the corners of her mouth all the way to her ears, giving her something that's called the Glasgow smile. So Elizabeth's murder happened in 1947, and like I said, it's still unsolved. This is a case we should cover in full. So if any of our listeners are hearing this and want us to make that happen,
we'll put it on
just
our
drop
list.
us a comment and let us know. We can do that in the future. But
I did not know about the grass thing. That is...
It's so fucked up to think about.
And then to be cut in half. No blood. And then the smile.
Yeah. And then to not have that person caught and to think that they're still out in society living their lives.
Just hoping,
terrifying.
Hoping that they're dead by now. Like,
God. Yeah. I would imagine, but good Lord.
I hope so. So fucked up.
So moving on from the Black Dahlia rumors, in 1962, a 27-year-old woman named Pauline Oton, I think is how you say her name, booked a room at the Cecil Hotel. She had an argument with her estranged husband, and as a result, she decided to jump to her death from the 9th floor. Before hitting the ground, Pauline came crashing down on top of a 65-year-old man named George Giannini, who just so happened to be walking by the hotel.
Just simply wrong place, wrong time.
It's oh God, that's like so terrifying to think about.
It is. It really, like, it makes you, at least it makes me think how we really don't know.
Yeah. It makes me want to never leave my house.
I know.
So, George would die as a result of Pauline's suicide.
They instantly both died.
And I don't know if you found this in your research, but strangely enough, Pauline's husband's name was George. So she had gotten in a fight with her husband George and accidentally killed another man named George when she jumped from the building. Such strange coincidences. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But okay, imagine like all of a sudden one day just getting a call and your father died because someone jumped on him.
Yeah. I can't imagine.
He's just like walking by to get a cup of coffee and I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was doing, but
right.
Just, walking
insane
like we
way
do.
To die.
Right.
Like, who would ever guess that that's how things are going to end? So strange. And that's what I mean, is it's like, these aren't just, with the Hotel Cecil, these aren't just like,
They're unusual.
There's such unusual ways to die.
Yes.
That are associated with this place. And it just gets worse.
It does.
So, then in 1964, a well-known and very liked long-term resident of the Cecil Hotel was found dead. She was a retired telephone operator named Goldie Osgood. Goldie was an elderly woman that actually went by the name Pigeon because she was known to feed the pigeons in the area. So just a, typical lovely old lady sitting on the bench feeding the birds. Goldie's body was found in the Cecil Hotel in an unimaginable state. She had been viciously raped, stabbed, beaten, and her room was ransacked. And her case is also still unsolved, which is also terrifying to think about.
And like this nice old lady to be brutally attacked like that. It's
horrific.
Yes.
In the 1980s, Richard Ramirez, also known as Night Stalker, stayed as a guest at the Cecil Hotel for a few weeks, and during his stay, he allegedly committed 14 murders. Supposedly, he would toss his blood-covered clothes into the hotel's dumpster and then walk into the hotel in his underwear or nude without anyone ever batting an eye.
Because, it's the Cecil.
Yeah, it had just become known as that place.
That's where this kind of shit happens, and
if it's going to happen really anywhere, it's going to happen at the Cecil.
Yup.
So then, in 1991, an Australian man named Jack Unterweger, I don't know if I'm saying that right. It just sounds so funny to me. I'm sorry. Unterweger? I don't know. He stayed at the Cecil, and he was later charged with the murder of 3 sex workers who he killed by strangling them with their own bras.
And he was actually convicted in Australia before this for the same thing.
Yep.
He went to prison.
Yep.
And he was just like this smart, charming man who was like, yeah, look at me. I'm reformed. The prison system worked.
Yeah.
Then he became like a true crime reporter and was going on car rides with the police and ended up, in LA at the Cecil.
Yeah.
And then, not actually reformed.
Yeah. So here's the thing about Jack. He had been arrested for murder. So he and his girlfriend saw a woman named Margaret walking down the street, and he invited this 18-year-old girl to take a ride with them. And as soon as she gets into the car, he punches her in the face, ties her hands behind her back, drives her to a desolate area, and forces her to get out and walk into the woods. All of this while his girlfriend watches from the car. The girlfriend then says that Jack came back about 10 minutes later, alone, without Margaret, and carrying a steel whip covered in blood and hair.
A steel whip?
A steel whip.
Who the fuck has a steel whip?
Fuck if I know. 2 years later, he is charged with Margaret's murder and sentenced to life in prison. But while he's in prison, he writes an autobiography called Purgatory or the Trip to Jail, Report of a Guilty Man.
Give me a break.
And in this book, he claims that when he murdered Margaret, he was in a drug-induced state. He had unresolved issues from his childhood, and he's free of all of that now. Now he knows how to behave himself. He's a changed man.
Right.
And people believe this motherfucker. He was granted a very rare pardon and released after serving only 15 years. He swindled everyone.
He sure did. He sure fucking did.
Yeah, and because he's let out of prison, he starts working as a crime journalist, and then, what do you know, women in his area start to disappear. Dude even goes on a freaking radio show to report on these missing women who have by now started to reappear, murdered. He reports on these murders and even interviews authorities about them, where police are telling him, yeah, we have no idea who could be doing this. Dude's sitting right in front of you.
He's like, you don't.
So then Jack goes to LA for another work opportunity, and guess what? Women in LA start to disappear. Turns out Jack had scammed everyone. He wasn't actually reformed, and he was indeed a serial killer. A lot of people do say that he stayed at the Cecil Hotel to kind of pay homage to Richard Ramirez. I couldn't find anything of him saying that, but it's just speculation. So
whatever.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Nasty.
So all of that brings us to February 19th, 2013. A young European couple staying at the Cecil Hotel complains to maintenance that the water in their room has a weird smell and taste. I guess they had gotten... That's so... I'm sorry. That sound, oh my god. I can't wait to watch this back and see the shock on my face.
It was good.
Oh my god.
It's so gross. I can't imagine.
Oh, it's so bad to think about. Yeah, so I guess they had gotten some of it in their mouths
They
while they're
drank
taking a
some,
shower.
and
They're getting it from the tap. And then there are other people complaining that the water pressure was just shit. So a maintenance man named Santiago Lopez made his way to the rooftop of the hotel where the water tanks were. And this was like normal protocol whenever there was an issue with the building's water. Only this time, when the lid to the water tank was removed, the decomposing body of a young woman was floating inside. She was nude, but her clothes, the clothes that she was last seen in, were at the bottom of the tank. So, what happened, and how exactly did this woman end up in a water tank?
Being drank by European tourists.
You couldn't. That would never leave my mind.
No.
I would never go a day in my life not thinking about the time that I drank water that shared space with a decomposing body. How awful is that?
The thought of it makes me just want to throw up. Truly.
Yeah. So, Elisa Lam was from Vancouver, Canada. She was a 21-year-old college student and wanted to take a solo trip around the West Coast. She arrived in LA on January 26th, and by the time she found herself at the Cecil Hotel, she had already seen San Diego and was on her way to Santa Cruz. Although Elisa was in her 20s, her family still worried about her traveling by herself, and as a compromise, she promised to check in with them every single day while she was away. As you can imagine, her family began to worry when they hadn't heard from her on January 31st. Her parents immediately contacted the LAPD, and the police did a search for her at her last known location, the Cecil Hotel. Nonetheless, they couldn't find her, so they pulled the security footage from the cameras on the hotel's premises, and this is where things get really weird.
Yeah.
The hotel video showed Elisa in one of its elevators acting very strange. She can be seen entering the elevator and pushing the buttons for every floor. She weaves back and forth, poking her head out of the elevator, looking into the hallways, almost as if she's looking for someone, but no one else is captured on the footage. She does this a few more times, seeming rather paranoid. Almost like maybe someone's following her.
Right.
She's trying to get away from them.
Right.
She also squeezes herself into the corner of the elevator.
Like
she
trying
hides,
to hide.
Yeah, hides her face. But then she steps out of the elevator and just stands there. Like the last minute of the surveillance video shows Elisa standing on the left-hand side of the door making random hand gestures. And as a part of their search for her, police released this footage to the public. And of course,
they went nuts.
The internet just fucking took off with it. They were coming up with some crazy-ass theories. Some were saying that it was because the hotel was haunted, something awful had happened to her, and others speculated that someone had killed her and that the hotel was in the middle of a cover-up. Stories of the supposed elevator game began to spread, which is said to open a portal to another dimension. But in their search for Elisa, police found prescription medication bottles in her room, and they said that had she been taking her meds according to the instructions written on the bottle, she would have had much less in her possession than she did when they discovered them.
Right.
It was clear that Elisa, who had been diagnosed with bipolar and depression, had not been taking her medications properly, which might also explain her strange behavior, as we see on the footage from the elevator.
And her family said that it was something that she had dealt with before. You know, it wasn't the first time that she had stopped taking her medication.
Yes, and I think in your notes you put that she had, not delusions, but like hallucinations. If she had stopped taking her meds, she would have hallucinations so bad that she would hide under her bed.
Yes, and I know that at least once they had to take her to like a psychiatric hospital because the delusions that she was experiencing.
Even if Elisa had been suffering from mental health issues, it didn't exactly explain how she ended up dead. More specifically, how did she end up in the hotel's water tank? This is the question that still plagues a lot of people's minds. The court statements detail exactly how much effort the maintenance man had to go through in order to find Elisa's body. Lopez said that he took the elevator to the 15th floor of the hotel before walking up the staircase to the roof. Then he had to first turn off the rooftop alarm and climb up on a platform where the hotel's 4 water tanks were located. Finally, he had to climb another ladder to get to the top of the main tank. Would it really be possible for Elisa to have done all of this in a manic state? I guess that's up for everyone else to decide for themselves. It is an important note that her autopsy didn't show any signs of foul play. Her death was ultimately ruled an accidental drowning.
Well, okay, and Stuff You Should Know, I think, covered this part really well. Because I think a big thing that most people get hung up on is, there's an alarm that goes off if that door is opened. However, there's also a fire escape that you can take from a window to the roof without setting off any alarms.
Right.
And so that's what I kind of, believe is that.
Yeah.
Especially in her paranoid state.
Yeah.
Climbing up the window, going up the fire escape, and.
Right.
It's like she was hiding.
Yeah, and I will say that I, too, after seeing that footage, believed a lot of the theories online about just something, something spooky happening, whatever. But the crime scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, is a documentary on Netflix, and that really changed my mind about everything. So yeah, I do believe that she was suffering some type of mental break, and unfortunately found herself in that state, and maybe she climbed in there and couldn't get back out,
And my thought for the clothes, if you're in water and having a hard time swimming with clothes on, those are going to be heavy and weighing you down.
Yeah.
It makes total sense to me to take
your
them off
clothes off to try and give you your best chance. Yeah.
Right.
I do agree with that. Because again, no foul play was detected. I know that there were some issues with, they couldn't really conduct a normal autopsy because her body had been in the water tank for so long. They couldn't do a toxicology report because testing her blood once it was mixed with all of the water wouldn't give accurate results. So a lot of that has, kind of fueled these online theories even more, because it's like, well, why can't you give us definite answers type of thing? And so people just speculate.
Because it's at the Cecil.
Yeah.
And because, again, these really odd, strange circumstances, people are going to take it and run with it.
Yeah. So.
But I think it was just a very unfortunate case of a mental break.
Yeah, I do agree.
And actually, one of the medications that she was taking is called Effexor. And I have been on that in my life. I've been on a lot of medications before, and Effexor, it was like, if I didn't take it right away in the morning, I would feel it mid-morning. My body would be like, what the fuck? Why haven't you taken me?
Yeah.
It gives you, it's a very weird sensation. People refer to it as electrical zaps.
Oh.
Where it's almost, it's a very, very quick, but it's like you feel this electrical pulse go through your body, and while that's happening, it's like you zone out.
Yeah.
While that happens. And so just, and that's just after not taking it for a few hours.
Yeah. So then if you're going a day or two.
Especially cold turkey, because I was weaned off of it.
Yeah.
And it was horrible. It was my BMI was 17.
Jeez.
I was miserable. It was horrible. It was horrible.
Yeah.
So, and then that mixed with any other prescriptions that she just cold turkey stopped
taking. Yeah.
And with, I don't know much about bipolar 1, but to me it makes total sense that, she would have a mental break, a psychotic break.
Yeah. You can go in psychosis.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it can definitely be expected that someone could have psychosis if they just stop taking their medications. Unfortunately, it's not the answer that everyone wants, but I think it's the answer that explains what could have happened to her the best. So,
yeah.
Before we end our episode, I will leave you with this. It's a story written by a Reddit user sharing their account of their spooky stay at the Cecil Hotel. It's titled, "So I Stayed at Stay on Main, aka Cecil Hotel, and it was terrifying." As the title suggests, I recently stayed at the Cecil Hotel, or Stay on Main as it's now called. Forgive me any errors in text, grammar, or format. I'm on mobile. I've never written a day in my life, let alone on Reddit, but I just want to share my story. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, the Cecil Hotel is known for some weird shit.
Mm-hmm.
Famous serial killer Richard Ramirez stayed here, and it's where Elisa Lam died mysteriously in the water tank. The Black Dahlia was also last known to be staying there, so yeah, I was definitely excited to check it out, the horror junkie I am. Now, as a disclaimer, I don't or didn't believe in the paranormal. I don't know what to think at this point. All I know is my stay there was weird, and I have no explanation. First off, the staff was great. Nothing weird there. They were super helpful and didn't make me feel like a complete idiot for being confused by the big bad LA, being from a small town in Minnesota. The first happening took place in my room. It was around 11 p.m. and I was laying on the bed watching TV. I heard something making a thumping noise in the bathroom, so I went in. I didn't hear a thing for about 2 minutes, and then I hear a creak and another thump. It was clear that it was coming from the pipes on the bathroom sink. I turned the faucet on to make sure it was working, and nothing came out. That's when I went to call the front desk. "Front desk," the groggy-sounding attendant said. "Hi, I'm in room 309, and my bathroom faucet..." This is as far as I got before I heard another thump and the sound of water flowing. "Never mind, seems to be working fine now. Sorry to be a bother." He told me to call if I needed anything and wished me a nice rest of my stay. I headed to the bathroom to turn the faucet off, and the water was a sickly brown, almost gray color. I turned it off and back on, and the color was fine. Okay, gross, but I took a mental note not to drink the water.
Good thought.
Not wanting to bother the attendant again over a faucet I didn't need at the moment, I headed to bed. I fell asleep quickly and woke up at exactly 1:38 a.m. to a knocking on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw a middle-aged man nervously looking down. Now, I'm a pretty small 21-year-old female, but this guy really looked harmless. I answered my door. "Can I help you?" "I need help," he replied almost instantly. "Are you hurt? Can I call someone?" After that, he stared at me for what felt like an hour. It was probably around a minute and a half before he grabbed my arm and pulled me into the hallway while he slipped into my room. It being 1 a.m., I had nothing on me. Now, I was certainly wondering what the hell this guy's problem was, but I prepared myself for all kinds of weirdos and assholes before making this trip, so I walked downstairs to the lobby and told the front desk what had happened. The man apologized profusely, saying something about all the characters he had to deal with. He called some security, and up to my room we went. He opened the door no problem. I was worried this nut would have barricaded the door somehow, and it appeared no one was there until one of the guards went into the bathroom. There, this guy had cut his wrists and was holding them under the sink repeatedly, something about cleansing himself and this hotel. I could tell he had lost a fair amount of blood, so how he managed to take a swing at me and the security guard with his razor was beyond me. But he did, and though he missed the guard, he grazed my forearm and drew some blood. 911 was called immediately, and he was taken to the hospital. I was asked if I wanted to press charges, and I was offered a different room or a full refund. They also gave me some sweet gift cards and a coupon.
Great.
I stayed. Like I said, I knew LA would be a wacky experience, and I hadn't been hurt, and I really thought that would be the end of the madness, but I was wrong. If anyone cares to hear about the rest of my stay, I'll post more, but for now, I need to take a break from writing this out. Some weird shit happened at this place. I didn't think it would be this hard to type it out, but I'm already feeling uneasy.
I'm not victim blaming here. But for the love of God.
For the love of God.
You're tiny 21-year-old female alone, and a middle-aged man
comes knocking on your door at the middle of the night. Let's be smart here, guys.
You can talk to him through the door, but there's no need to open said door.
So I did find a part 2. This is the update.
Mm.
I left off with my first night after a lunatic bust into my room and proceeded to slice his wrists open in the bathroom. He cut my arm in the process, which I did get checked out, and I'll survive. Now, after that ordeal, I did manage to get some sleep, and the rest of the night went smoothly. I woke up around 10 a.m. and wanted to catch a late breakfast. I threw on some clothes and made my way to the elevator. I pushed the button for the lobby, and the elevator was making a weird clunking noise. This freaked me out because I've never been a fan of elevators, small spaces and all that. The elevator reached the lobby, but the doors did not open. Instead, the elevator went back up to the 3rd floor. The doors opened and immediately shut again, then took me up to the 6th floor. Here, the elevator just kind of stalled. I pressed the emergency button and an intercom came on. All I could hear was a weird bubbling noise, like when a little kid is blowing bubbles in his juice through a straw. Hello? I need some help. The elevator's acting up. Just more of that damn bubbling noise. At this point, I'm thinking it's an electrical thing and the intercom is goofed up too. Finally, the bubbling noise stops and instead the elevator fills with static. Then the elevator drops. I mean, drops.
Oh my God.
This is my worst fear. I'm now praying to a God I don't believe in that I won't feel much pain once I crash the damn elevator at the bottom of some creepy-ass hotel. But the elevator stops abruptly at the 3rd floor and the doors open. I take my chance and run out of there like my ass is on fire. Admittedly, I'm crying because I thought for sure I was going to be crushed to death. I run for the stairwell and almost barrel into a woman and her small daughter. I apologized when the little girl says something terrifying. Mama, that lady isn't real, just like Eleanor.
What the fuck?
Sure she is, honey. I can see her. Only you can see Ellie. The mother gives me a sympathetic look and smiles. No, she isn't, Mama. I can tell because she has the shadows following her like Eleanor does. The mother mouths sorry and pulls her daughter along. Something that little girl said didn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
I made it down the stairs and went to a nearby restaurant to compose myself and eat as much as I could manage. I really debated not going back to the hotel and leaving my shit and going back home. But after about an hour and a half, I got over it and headed back. I figured the worst was over. When I reached my room, I really wanted to take a shower. I cranked up the hot water and jumped in. All was going well, and I even started to feel better. Then the water turned that disgusting, rusty, gray color. I got out of the shower and called the front desk. Front desk, this is Jess. Hi, Jess. There are some issues with the plumbing right now. I was taking a shower when the water spewed out this really gross, rusty color. I'm not aware of any problems, but I'll send someone up to take a look. Now, since the change from Cecil Hotel, Stay on Main has been renovated and modernized quite a bit. It honestly reminded me of a college building, so I was surprised and quite frankly annoyed I was having this many problems. You're staying at the Cecil. Come on. About 10 minutes later, I heard a knock and looked through the peephole to see an older man, about 65, I'd guess, with some tools. His name tag said Wilson. I opened the door for him. Good day, miss. Your shower's giving you some trouble? Hi, yes, I was trying to shower when the water turned colors. Well, I'd be happy to take a look for you. He walked in and I left it to him. He wasn't in there but 5 minutes before walking out. I was hoping this meant it was an easy fix and I'd finally be able to enjoy my stay. Listen, darling, you need to get out of this hotel. The water is fine. I was kind of offended and taken aback. Excuse me?
What?
I've heard this complaint before, and it's not in the plumbing. It's in your head. I've been here a long time, dear, and I've seen and heard a lot. Save yourself some trouble and check out. I thought this guy was full of shit and liked to spook guests given the history of the hotel, but I think he was right and I should have listened. Honestly, even if that's not real, great read.
Good.
Great read. I still like a good spooky story.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's our story for the day. Do you have anything else to add? I think that's a good way to leave it.
Yeah, we're not ever going to go there. It's not in
not
in
the
books.
cards. No thanks.
I recommend you don't either.
Yeah, let's just stay away from that place entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably be for the best.
Yeah.
So, like I said, please rate our podcast. Check out the links to our other social media platforms, as well as our sponsor. Thank you all for being here. We hope you have a lovely week. And remember to always keep it spooky.